if you look at the early 1900s and up to the mid part of the century, you've had two world wars, really European wars fought all over the world. You've had the clash of communism, fascism, Nazism, capitalism, and liberal democracies. It was on the battlefields, but it was also in the minds of people. Millions had died, millions had been killed. So many houses had lost at least one member of the family in the wars. So it was this rather very bleak situation. During this time, independent thinkers, mainly from 8 countries, came together. That was the UK, the US, France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, and India. And they came together and they said, the Communist International is over. Let us come together to create what would be a Humanist International. And its original name was the International Humanist and Ethical Union. And this was based in the Netherlands because the prime movers of this came from the Netherlands, especially Professor Jaap van Praag. He said, if the Christians have their organization, the Protestants among the Christians have their groups, the Catholics have theirs, the Muslims have theirs, why don't the humanists have their own? Until then, in fact, the biggest calamity for our kind of people was during the Second World War, the freethinker groups in Austria, in Germany, and in Italy got almost exterminated by the fascists and the Nazis. So it was a time to regroup, to bring together the freethinkers, the rationalists, the humanists, the ethical culturists. It is now called Humanists International. It was thought to be a more representative name, and it includes, and during my time at the IHU, we started inviting the free thinkers, the atheist groups, the agnostic groups, the secular groups, to come become part of this single identity of humanism. So what does the Humanists International today stand for? It stands for human freedoms, the multifaceted aspects of human freedoms. It stands for a world with reason. It stands for the rights of the non-believers. So the IHEU, the International Humanist and Ethical Union, was based in the Netherlands, as I said, and it continued from 1952 till 1992 in the Netherlands, which is when I went for the first meeting of the humanists there. I was recommended to go there by Dr. Indumati Parikh of the Indian Radical Humanist Association. I was involved in the organization already. By Mr. Abraham Solomon of the Indian Secular Society. I was involved with them as well. And in 1992, 40th anniversary of the organization, there was some discussion about shifting the office from there to move to the English-speaking world. And when that decision was made to move it from the Netherlands to the United Kingdom, I was appointed as Director, Secretary General of the organization, and Director of the International Humanist and Ethical Union. This same organization, International Humanist and Ethical Union, was my home for something like 17 years from then. In Nigeria, we had Amina Lawal. Her only mistake was she became pregnant and she was not yet married. And in north of Nigeria, the ruling was by the Sharia Council or its equivalents there that she should be stoned to death. We organized almost a guerrilla visit by our president, Mr. Levi Fragel, to go to Nigeria, organize a press conference, issue a protest note, make a declaration, take the flight, and leave the evening. This has led ultimately to the protection of Amina Lawal, simply for the attention it created to the problem. For Dr. Younus Shaikh in Pakistan, 20 years ago, really, to this year, he was under blasphemy, death penalty, death row, and we managed to lobby the countries of the world to bring him to safety. When Amrutanandamai was exposed by the Rationalists and the freethinkers of Kerala, and Chief Minister Anthony was in power, agnostic atheist that he is, he was very sympathetic to Amrutanandamai, the hugging mother. And when they exposed the story of murders in the ashram, arrest warrants were issued to get the authors of this tome arrested. It was our campaign from London that prevented that disaster. When a Telugu language editor exposed in a series of articles in his magazine called Vijaya Viharam, Satya Sai Baba and all the related allegations, the history about him, they were seeking to arrest him. It is the campaign of the IHU. I was, of course, leading it. That led to the police hesitate because everybody knew it was an unjust thing. The magazine was only exposing wrongdoing. In Slovakia, where the rights of women were being attacked because their reproductive rights were sought to be undermined by the influence of the Catholic Church, which was entering into concordats. Concordats are Catholic Church contracts or treaties with various countries. So international human rights, yes, but here we have signed something with the church. We cannot let the international rights impact this agreement. That's how the Catholic Church was binding people into their moral view and universe by agreeing legislative measures with national governments. So we influenced that. We were part of that process. The Islamic countries of the world, the OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, for nearly 10 years, they have been fighting. They were really very seriously lobbying to make sure that blasphemy laws, which are valid in their countries, would become international law. Therefore, a criticism of the Prophet, the last Prophet of Islam, criticism of Islamic ideas would be legitimate to be recognized as crime. This they have tried for over 10 years. The IHU has been at the forefront of creating fronts and organizations. I've been a privileged part of that effort to stop that from succeeding. While it has been known for a long time that the Catholic Church was protecting its own employees and clergy from all accusations of child sexual abuse. This was known throughout. Films were made. This was raised in America. Tens of millions of dollars were paid as compensation in reparation for this dastardly activity, where the popes consciously, deliberately transferred these miscreants, these scoundrels, to countries which did not have any extradition treaties with the mainland Europe countries where their crimes were discovered and reported. So if you send them to a Latin American country where the church had serious grip on the government, and you transferred your offender, accused person there, then that person was safe from extradition. The Pope did it consciously. And this was exposed by the IHU at the UN during the time I was its director. particular concern with the social context of India, I have myself, for the IHU, organized 2 world conferences on untouchability. Now, very often in India, untouchability is portrayed as simply a Hindu religious problem. Not so. Historically, untouchability has been part of the diseases, social diseases of humanity over the millennia. They were untouchables, they still are untouchables in Islamic Yemen, in animist Nigeria, in Buddhist Korea, and Buddhist Sri Lanka, Buddhist Myanmar, in Shinto Japan. They have nothing to do with Hinduism. It should not be misconstrued as simply a problem of religion, though Hinduism, through its mythology, has reinforced that discrimination, that it's a larger human disease. So I brought together people in London in the first World Conference on Untouchability, and people from France and Spain and Sweden in 1300 years, the Common Era. There was untouchability. Its victims or its scholars, both of them from various countries, came to speak about it, to discuss it. The next World Conference on Untouchability was in Kathmandu, by when we were able to involve the Deputy Prime Minister of the country, its National Human Rights Organization, and its Scheduled Castes Commission kind of structures. It's not about confrontation. It's about working in cooperation to achieve already declared goals of governments so that we can improve the human condition by adding our little bit. Now, it is a common myth to think that there are not many humanists in the world. The fact is, if there are about 2.5 billion Christians in the world, with 45,000 subsects, minor churches, it's not buildings, but belief systems. If you have 1.5 billion Muslims in the world, with less divisions, but nevertheless divisions, the third category of beliefs is that of the religious non-believers. 2.5 billion Christian, 1.5 billion Muslims, and between 1.2 and 1.3 billion humanists, rationalists, secularists, skeptics, religious non-believers, and those who may not find the need to declare any identity to themselves, but have kept away from religion. Then come the 1 billion Hindus. So to represent their interests, and where did all these people come from? The 1.2 billion people who we now recognize as non-religious, atheist, or if not atheist, agnostic people. These are all people or families with those thinking traditions that have emerged in the last 200 years. So at one time, the world was purely religious. Now its third most important belief group is the one of non-belief. I had exposed on television a series of people, but when I moved back to India in 2006, I started appearing on television. And while my interests are varied, I chose to focus on science, humanism, rationalism, and superstition, because not many were getting that opportunity to do that. But 2016, 17, and 18 were the pinnacle of all these exposures. So an astrologer, a fellow called Younus Shaikh, he made a claim that he gets 90 out of 100 predictions right. A bombastic guy who is the favorite astrologer of all the cinema heroes and the celebrities, and a very boastful character. So I had been writing down 100 of the predictions that he got wrong. And I found that only one of his 100 predictions was right. So while I was compiling this, by sheer chance, I got a call from someone saying, watch, this guy is on TV. So I see him making these statements. I requested if I would be allowed to participate. The channel welcomed the idea. I went there, and after scene after scene after scene of being exposed, when he realized that everything about him was being exposed, he did this and he said, I do not know any astrology. You have to believe Babu Gogineni. I am nobody, I'm not good. And he walked out. In another discussion, an astrologer who promised to come abstained from coming to the show because I was there. And I made sure the TV channel would focus on the empty chair throughout the discussion. During eclipses, when eating is prohibited and you're told that it will be dangerous, I organized biryani parties in TV channels so that while the eclipse was on, we would sit in the studio and show at least that we can eat. We had samosas and biryani and stuff. Some channels were not that courageous to have it then, but they still cooperated, which was very different to 2006 when they would not do it at all. So we made this progress, and the videos of the TV channel, YouTube videos, were receiving 3 million views, 3.5 million views. And that is what led to the invitation to Big Boss, I imagine. I don't believe I went there to be a celebrity. I was invited to a celebrity show. I probably had more views on YouTube than some of the others who came to the show. It was very funny, and I don't mean it with any disrespect. It's just that I'm unconnected with the entertainment world. There were 16 people when we started Big Boss. They all knew me, but I did not know even a single person there. I say it without any sense of condescension. It's just that I am not connected. I don't watch television. I did not watch Big Boss before I went in. I did not watch Big Boss episodes of what was shown when I was in it. I did not watch any later. For me, it was an opportunity to go there with information about humanism, rationalism, democracy, and related issues. I stayed there 63 days, and that provided ample opportunity to speak about these things. I got T-shirts made. I asked and got agreement from Big Boss organizers that I shall enter as Bigger Boss. So I had created an identity for myself that I would be called Bigger Boss. The reason was, and I have said it in the house and outside, that no human who is able to think for himself or herself should accept the influence of a big boss, an unknown entity who through a voice is dictating terms to us. So I said, I am superior to that big boss, so I am Bigger Boss. So I took about 12 or 13 T-shirts. All of them had the Bigger Boss logo and Bigger Boss, and they were my syllabus. Every week, I shall introduce to the house companions, and therefore to the viewing public, things that matter a lot to the modern world. So everything I mentioned to you now, I had a T-shirt with Stardust written on it. I had one with the imprimatur of the slogans of the French Revolution: liberty, equality, fraternity. I had opportunity to talk about M.N. Roy. I had fun. I didn't just go there to give boring lectures. As part of the game and the activities, I was able to introduce, I think I was able to introduce these subjects. Now, did it help the viewpoints we are espousing? I do believe so. I did say to you, I was very active on television, but that was news channels. Now, the general understanding of viewership numbers is that out of every 100 TV viewers, only 10 are watching news. 90 are watching what is called entertainment. Now, by changing channels, by my changing channels from news channel to entertainment channel, I think I had a unique opportunity to now speak to so many others who would otherwise not be watching us. And this gave an opportunity to at least let them know that we exist. Spontaneously, people had formed groups to support me. I hadn't made any stupid arrangements of support groups and things like that. That means something. That means that people are watching us, whether they agree with us or not. And they thought that what we say might be A, interesting, B, entertaining to the viewing public. I think it's good. I hope more people like us get involved, get invited, get the opportunity to speak of these ideas in on other platforms than simply a speech, a protest meet, a dharna. We should reach out to people and go to people where they are. Television helps a lot. I don't believe my statements are controversial. When I said religion that requires a God, a scripture, and a prophet or a rishi, its time has gone. That's not controversial. That's my analysis. If I were to say that people should have no right to practice a religion, or those who practice a religion should be disenfranchised, then that would be controversial. But to simply observe that the time of religion and for religion has passed, now is the time for modern, forward-looking thinking, it's not controversial. So the ones who call it controversial will keep doing that, but it can never be a crime. So you see what I'm saying? A lot of people who claim that their delicate religious sentiments have been hurt will have to buy Iodex and apply it to their hurt parts of the body and mind. I shall not be doing them the favor of making softer statements than my observations. And those observations are not criminal in any manner. India, Article 295A is used usually to trouble free thinkers like us when we speak our mind. But you know, the law is actually not dangerous to us, not most normal rationalists and humanists. To attract the provisions of that law, your criticism must go beyond criticism, become abuse. It should become insult. It should be deliberate. And to cross these thresholds is not easy. In fact, what one religious person says about the other religious person almost every time crosses these thresholds. We are invoking science and history and knowledge and facts and saying what you said does not stand the test of any examination. Have I received threats? Oh, yes. They come by the dozens. They come all the time through social media. There's a huge amount of riffraff groups around in the internet, hate groups, and they tag you and they wish you death and they want to threaten you and they say that we shall find out where you live, and there are messages going around saying, where does this person live? But these internet gundas are internet gundas. They will not get off their chair and do anything themselves. But what they do is they normalize hate, where a real criminal may feel justified in attacking physically. What happened to Gauri Lankesh and the others is terrorist attacks on them. They have created the atmosphere where, after the assassination of a public rationalist, groups of people can come and defend obliquely the assassin and criticize the victim. That's happening. We know that. We see that. Weaponization of the law 295A can lead to no punishment to anyone. Bombay High Court has categorically ruled, I think already more than 10 years ago, that an academic discussion about the merits and the claims of a religious belief are not covered by this law. The Supreme Court went even further. And in the MS Dhoni case, where MS Dhoni on, I think, Business Today cover, was shown what they think Lord Vishnu looks like. Nobody's seen him. And he's got these 10 or 12 hands, and in each hand is a commercial product. So some dumb fellow who saw it got offended. These are people who are in the business of getting offended. Finally, the case went up to the Supreme Court. And very, very interestingly, the Supreme Court of India has said that not every insult to religion is an offense. I hope people understand what this means. It means that you have once again learned from the highest authority, the Supreme Court, that you can insult religion. And not always is it an offense by law. Because for it to be an offense, it should cross these categories. As I told you, it should be deliberate, it should be an insult, it should be an abuse. When you are saying, don't do that, that's against human rights. That's hardly 295A. But these vigilante groups that the right-wingers have now promoted everywhere are trying their best to file cases. These are nuisance value cases. Then there is 153A. Now, this is the law under the Indian Penal Code, which is about creating discord among sections of society. It's a blanket provision, and you can apply to anyone. Any political party leader who speaks can also be brought under it. There must be a common sense application of it. What happens often is that in a court of law, this is dismissed. But from the time you complain in a police station, FIR is booked, till the end of the trial is many, many, many years in India. So these many years is the harassment, which is the reward to people of India who are simply following the exhortation of Article 51AH under the fundamental duties of every person, which is promotion of the scientific temper, which is the spirit of social reform, of humanism. So to do what the Constitution asks you to do is a duty. To perform the duty that the state has asked you to perform, you need protection, not harassment from the state. I hope this kind of spirit will inform any further judgment at the Supreme Court level, so that all over the country, people like us can be sure that we will not have nuisance cases against us. But as I said, it's only a nuisance. Show me the number of convictions in the last 50 years in India under these laws. that relate to humanists, rationalists, secularists, free thinkers. There aren't any. One or two of those, but they don't apply to humanists. One guy who wrote a book, a tract attacking Islam, his book was banned, and that was confirmed by the court. One rationalist, Mr. Brahmam, wrote about the Bible. The matter finally was in favor of the freedom of speech of the individual. So we should not be too disturbed by newspaper reports, incompetent journalists making news stories. The law is fairly in our favor. So the law has to be pragmatic. The principle is clear. We all should have the right to say what we want. Religion should not be protected any more than any other belief. In fact, no belief should be protected. All that is clear. Freedom of speech, freedom of belief, freedom of conscience. But we are in a special situation. We know what happened in Rwanda. We know how communal riots were inflamed in North India through WhatsApp. You know how hundreds of people came onto the streets to attack people of different communities. They were all mobilized by people who intended to create mischief. Let's first have those laws in place. I think that's even more important than looking at 295A. Nuisance cases, really. Yeah, it made someone like MF Hussein leave the country and go and live and die in another country. That's inexcusable. India lost one of her prime artists. I don't have a lot of respect for Hussein because he depicted Indira Gandhi of the emergency time dictatorship as goddess Kali. So I don't have a lot of respect for him, for his intellectual convictions. But he is a man of great talent and art and accomplishment in his field. And for the wrong reasons, he had to leave the country. It can be misused, and we should condemn it. But even more than that, we need to have stricter laws with greater punishments to those who incite discord by claiming that their sentiments are hurt. The Pew report really confirms to us what we read every day in the newspapers and what we watch in discussions on television every day. The Pew report is not bringing out anything new to us today. I'll tell you why. When in a right-wing upsurge, the electorate of India, the ones who could be bothered to go and vote, went and chose forces of division over anything else. These forces of division have been postulating their idea that India should be a Hindu country, should be accepted as one. Not only that, that Indians should all consider themselves Hindu, whatever their belief system be. Now, this is not simply an opinion that they were sharing. They were intimidating. They were pushing and pressurizing people. Not simply that, they went and attacked the homes of people where they thought that beef was being consumed. The moment you talk anything about Tipu Sultan, then you're anti-national. The moment you say you do not agree with something that the government has proposed, you are offered an escape from India so that you could be happier in Pakistan. You know, this irresponsible, reckless provocation at a daily basis is because it's reflecting what people believe. I don't think anyone, obviously I exaggerate when I say I don't think anyone, but I would think most people voted for the right-wing forces because they are right-wing forces in religion, social identity, not because of right-wing economics. Nobody understands economics. They also voted because they wanted to assert their personal religious identity. I would say we should all be alarmed. We should be alarmed because in the 75 years of the existence of the country, and in 100 years before the formation of India as a political entity, which was independent, there was an attempt to forge an identity and a consciousness of belonging to a nation. And I would think till the mid-70s, that was an attempt that was going on with all its difficulties in the right direction. After Indira Gandhi came back to power, after the Janata Party lost, from then till now, nation building, identity forging of the nation has not been the top priority of people. In fact, the political parties started supporting division in society. Indira Gandhi encouraged, she didn't start it, but she encouraged the Khalistan activists. Bhindranwale had her support. She supported through Karunanidhi the Sri Lankan Tamil matters. Rajiv Gandhi went to Nagaland and said he would make Christianity the state religion of Nagaland, asking for votes. All these forces have been at work in India for many years now, since the early 80s. So the consequence of that, the consequence of Ramayana, Mahabharata on weekends on television, starting there, to the resurgence of the fight about Kashmir, to the reconsideration of Indian history through right-wing historians, where division is the only way to explain history. Talking of anti-nationals when there was no nation to start with. This not being tempered by intellectuals, not because they didn't try, but because the forum for them had disappeared. Everything became private, media became private. Media channels now decide who will get a platform to speak. Universities' independence has been taken over. These are all logical consequences of what started then. So we should be alarmed, but not be surprised. This has been coming for a long time. I think those of us who belong to the tradition of non-religion, those who do not need a religion or a God to lead a fulfilling life, morally correct, socially useful, personally fulfilling life, they need to always keep the eye open for new knowledge. Life is a journey of self-improvement, and they should do their best to acquire the latest knowledge, to keep applying the principles of rational inquiry and scientific discovery of facts, analyzing them with the tools of thinking, with knowledge, and with the full confidence in the positive outcome of human endeavor. We're a very successful race. Something like 200,000 years ago, we probably were only 10,000 people. We are now 7.5 billion. More people are alive today on the face of the earth than were ever born from the beginning till 200 years ago. That's how successful we have been. And all this success is based on a scientific, rational, humanist mindset. We have to do what we can to be part of it, to support it, to promote it. Now, there are different ways in which one can do it. And one can start by leading that life without confusion and without being intimidated either by family members or by members of society. The pressures at home for many young people are many. But this is not a confrontation with family members. A home is a place of freedom. A home is a place where you can feel secure to be who you are, not be scared of what parents or siblings or life partners would say. So one should find a way of living one's life in the light of one's understanding of that life, with the openness that helps you revise your understanding when new thoughts come in, and fresh facts also are part of that assessment. Some may want to go a little further and go beyond their home and their person, and not just focus on bringing up their children in a positive, non-religious, morally correct atmosphere, responsible to society and oneself. One wants to actually contribute to society. Then, because others are not doing it, identify areas where superstition has been creating problems for people's lives, human rights, social welfare impacted, hatred spread because of religious beliefs and identities, and try to communicate about those in a responsible manner. Our journey to humanism can be from various routes. Sometimes it's personal experience, sometimes it's a philosophical understanding of the universe, of the scientific enterprise, and then one becomes a humanist. But fundamental to it all is knowing that this is the world for us and there is no other. This is the life and there is nothing before this and after this. But we can all come to this world or take birth in this world and leave it a better place than when we came in, depending on our abilities and possibilities. Show this at the personal level or as an activist at the social political level. Politics is not simply running for elections. Politics is wherever policies are impacted through your intervention, through your sharing of opinions. And I would suggest that all rationalists, whatever age group, all humanists, whatever gender or background, should come into and engage with these issues openly without offending, being good representatives of this moral, ethical worldview, life stance, so that others may be inspired by it. Do not forget, in the last 200 years, from almost nobody, and anyone found was crucified or burnt at the stake, we have come to possibly 1.2 billion, possibly 1.3 billion people who don't need God and religion to lead meaningful lives. More will come our way and more will join the group, but we should understand we should not follow the authoritarian directions and the peer group pressures of tradition, of religion, of revelation, of dictatorship, political, social, intellectual. This is a big task, but it can be broken down to small things in our lives, and we can do it. Those of you who are interested, and completely unknown to me for at least 2 years since it was founded, there is a Facebook group named after me that some youngsters established because they were watching me on TV. There are about 40,000 people in that, discussing, debating, arguing, but mainly being friends with each other on science, reason, history. There are people with different levels of knowledge of humanism. So they teach each other. There are children in that. There are grown-ups. There are people probably are ex-communists now and looking for a modern alternative to their thinking. But most of them are rationalists and humanists who want to find a community. And in this group, and with this group strength, we have done many things. The group is the mother of the South Asian Humanist Association. It is the mother of Science for Society. There have been 7 international conferences organized in Europe and in America, in Canada, in the US, in France, in Finland. Meetings and events have been organized, and I would invite friends who are interested to come in and join.